Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I believe we have no presentations, no communications, and we have Heidi on the screen. Heidi Matthews is on the screen tonight. And Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to update the committee on the current district enrollment. I know that Assistant Superintendent O'Brien is also including the October 1st numbers in her report tonight. There is an increase from the last time I reported to the committee of 67 students. They are spread across almost every single school, with Kane being, I think, exactly the same as when I reported on September 9th. I also included the current elementary class size because I know that's a concern for the committee and something that we want to revisit throughout the year. No questions? Okay. There has been some changes and effective today, right? I think it is the 8th, yesterday, the 7th or the 8th?
Oh, the 8th.
Yeah, today. In August, all district administrators and teacher leaders participated in a full-day training focused on bullying and student discipline. On November 9th, tomorrow, 2022, schools will need to be in compliance with the new amended version of Mass General Law, Chapter 71, 37H and 3/4. The updated statute requires that prior to suspending or expelling a student, principals or their designees will be required to use alternatives to removal, for example, mediation, restorative justice, or conflict resolution, and must document the use and results of such alternatives. We are being advised that this new requirement appears to apply to both in-school and out-of-school suspensions under the updated Mass General Law. All school leaders are being provided a new training, which most of us participated in last Friday, as well as new updated forms and resources. And I know Assistant Superintendent O'Brien and Assistant Superintendent Skaza are doing a training with all of the Unit B members tomorrow. I just want to make it clear, because I realized I didn't in my report, this does not apply to instances of students' discipline if a student is charged with a felony. There are still steps that can automatically be applied, as well as any weapons, drugs, or staff assaults. This is for all other student disciplines, so such as assaults, fights, bullying, harassment, or any of those cases. Then we would have to follow this new regulations and document steps we've taken to intervene before we suspend a student from school. It also requires that all schools in Massachusetts have some form of PBIS, or all system-wide, school-wide systems of support to intervene before there are any discipline issues, as well as restorative practices, restorative justice, or peer mediation programs in place. In Marlborough, we're very proud of the fact that we have both. We've been, each of our schools have had significant PBIS training and systems in place for a number of years. And Dr. Skaza just mentioned in his last report, the restorative justice trainings that we've been participating in. Finally, I wanted to give a staffing update. We asked for that. So currently at this time, Marlborough Public Schools has 53 regular positions opened, 5 teaching positions, 14 behavior technicians, 24 paraeducators, 3 cafeteria workers, 4 custodians, and 4 other positions, such as long-term subs. You would think that some of these positions have remained open, but they really haven't. For example, out of the 5 teaching positions, 2 of them remain: a district-wide nurse floater and a speech language pathologist. Those are the only 2 teaching positions that remain from our original report earlier in this year. So we have a lot of staff being hired and then new positions. It's more of a churning effect that we're reporting. I did want to report some of the efforts that Patty Brown and her team have been participating in. For example, in events. Recent events they did in August, Marlborough High School Job Fair. In September, they did the Food Truck Festival. On September 23rd, they did Goodnow Elementary PTO event. They've done attended boys soccer teams, homecoming football games, the Richer Bingo Night. They had recruiting tables at Mass Bay Community College. They have reached out to QCC and Wachusett Community College and asked for a recruiting presence in their schools. They're also posting bi-weekly on LinkedIn, reposting all of our traditional sites, School Spring, Indeed. They have posting in the Teachers Lounge, posting on Handshake, which is a recruiting site dedicated specifically to colleges and universities, and a posting on JobX, which targets American International College students. The other steps is that within the next week or so, they are sending postcards to 23,000 households in Marlborough's and bordering communities. And we are drafting a letter to all new residents, welcoming them to the community and pointing out different resources we have in the Marlborough Public Schools, as well as job opportunities. So that is my report.
Any questions?
I will add, there are also a trick or treat on Main Street with a QR code thing that I saw some people going up next to your table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for including us.
Great.
Hopefully we get somebody out of it, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I do have a question, sorry. So of the 5, so the SLP of the 5 teaching positions, so are the other ones are any of them classroom teachers?
We have 2 classroom teaching positions. We had a resignation effective tomorrow, and we had an open position effective October 26th that are unfilled currently. We do have a school adjustment counselor that is split between 2 schools. And as a team, we're trying to long-term plan what we're going to be doing with our school adjustment counselors. So even though that's unfilled, we want to make sure that we're thoughtful about what that position. We heard about the wraparound service providers. So as a whole leadership team, we've been discussing that. We will continue that discussion this Thursday at our leadership meeting.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Assistant Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So I also have presented some data for the school committee regarding our enrollment. So my report is based on our October 1st submission to the Department of Education. So the total enrollment varies slightly from Superintendent Murphy's report. Hers is the most current enrollment data. So in your information that you have, there's a breakdown of a 3-year history for the number of students who've been homeschooled, the number of EL students K-12, the number of special education students, and those in Foster and McKinney-Vento. I've also included a historical out-of-district special education placement summary. And that is actually over, I was able to go back 4 years so that you can see the total number of out-of-district students that we've had over the last 4 years, which has declined since 2019, and the last 2 years has held pretty steady. The breakdown of the out-of-district placements, we have private day, residential, and collaborative. So the collaborative placements are placements from programs that are run and overseen by the public school districts. For instance, Marlborough Public Schools is a member of Aspet Valley Collaborative, as well as other local surrounding districts. So the collaborative programs are considered the least restrictive after being, attending public school. And then private day and residential is more restrictive, residential being the most restrictive. And private day and residential placements are usually more costly than collaborative placements. Collaboratives try to make the most cost-effective programs and tuitions for their member districts. So that information is what Mr. Diaz is going off of when he had presented at the last school committee meeting regarding a potential 14% increase by the Operational Services Division. So a summary of some of that data that I've presented in my report. There's been a consistent increase in the number of English language learner students enrolling in the district. The number of additional EL staff positions that were included and approved in the FY23 budget and are currently filled have been able to sufficiently meet the instructional needs of the student increases in EL. Our special education out-of-district placements, as I said, has been stable over the last couple of years, and that suggested 14% increase from OSD is a potential of $475,000 to up to $650,000 increase in the FY24 budget, and that's dependent on the collaborative program's tuition increases, which have not been set yet. However, those are set and approved by the Board of Superintendents that oversees the collaborative versus the, OSD. We also continue to have additional families identified as homeless on an ongoing basis due to loss of housing or economic hardship. We've seen an increase in the number of families since this time last year, so last October to this October. In comparison, we've seen an increase. And our wraparound service staff are immediately reaching out to those families to provide support as they are identified or as they are enrolling. Kayla Flaherty-Dawson, in her report before it had gone through some of the services and supports that they do provide for McKinney-Vento families as well as others that have been identified in need. The district also continues to receive an increase in notifications from DCF that Marlborough students are being placed in foster placements in other cities and towns. The availability of transportation is still challenging this year, as I had reported last year. And students are on waiting lists with transportation vendors, but in the meantime, DCF social workers are collaborating with us to provide assistance in order to keep the student enrolled in Marlborough Public Schools for consistency. And that is my report. Do anybody?
Questions from the committee? Ms. Bowden, Joe.
So the last statement that you made, like, what does that mean? Are they sending them by Uber?
No,
or if there's no busing to bring them here.
So while students are on waiting lists, the DCF social worker is picking them up from the foster placement and driving them to school.
Themselves.
And so hopefully, most of the time that's short term. That might be 2 or 3 weeks while we try to work with other districts and double up with other vendors. So yes, they're doing it personally.
I have another question, and then Heidi has a question. And this is actually probably for both of you, but I have been hearing about, these refugee families that have been being put on buses and sending them. They don't just all go to Martha's Vineyard.
They leave Martha's Vineyard in 40 hours, though.
And then come back.
Well,
So
they don't go back to Martha's Vineyard. You're not allowed back on there.
whatever. My question is, do we know if any of them, because I've heard that they're being placed in a couple of cities in hotels in those cities. Do we know if any?
For Marlborough Public Schools, we have not seen any arrivals to our city at this time.
Thank you.
At this point, there's been none. I had a meeting with the hotels the other day, and we went through it last time. I think our hotel rates are too high for the state to think about it. We had a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor the other day about it. Obviously disappointed. The way it's being handled is very poor. So they're not guaranteeing, but they're going to try to give us a heads up when a bus is headed our way. So I don't see what the difference is. I think Washington needs to take steps to deal with the issue. We're trying to deal with it farther down the river, and we can't deal with it farther down the river. You need to stop at the beginning. So, but at this point, we have no families as of 3 days ago. So.
Okay, and I lied, I have one more question. Is there a date by which the collaboratives set their rate increase?
I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry, Mr. Diaz, do you?
I believe they said next school year, correct?
So they're setting the rates for FY24. It will be through their board, and it's part of their annual fiscal budgeting process. So I assume similar to ours, it will be sometime
Like April,
early
May.
spring. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
I did, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I did reach out to Aspen Valley Collaborative and inquire what their early thought process is. And currently, they are not anywhere near the 14% rate set by the OSD. Very early thoughts by them, but we are preparing our budget, so I wanted to see where they are. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, can I just confirm that as a board, we discussed it at the last meeting, and it was much too early to project, but absolutely, I don't think anyone was asking for that increase.
And I just want to follow one thing before I recognize Ms. Matthews. There's a pretty good deficit in the line item for this currently in the budget, I believe. So why such a huge deficit, and how are we making that one up?
That is a transfer to circuit breaker that needs to be done. We offset a large portion of collaborative to circuit breaker, so that transfer needs to still happen.
So in your next report, that there were 5 or 6 decent-sized overruns.
Yeah, so it's not a budget. It's not a budget transfer. It's an expense reclassification into circuit breaker.
Reclassing.
Right.
Okay. Mrs. Matthews.
Thank you. Jody, I don't expect you to have an answer to this, or Mary, but I'm just a little confused on the numbers that were reported. Yeah, we have September numbers, you have your October 1, and then what Mary gave us for November 2nd. And like the September to October, we have a drop based on that, and then an increase on the November 2nd. So I just want to make sure that we're submitting the right number. Obviously, the October 1, and I just was curious as to the differences.
Yes, so there was a drop from the September report to October, and then an increase since then. I suspect that the decrease was because we had reported a number of students that were enrolled in Superintendent Murphy's report that subsequently, had never showed up, had not come into school. And so we had run a report, went through those. We had each of the schools double check, and then had learned that those students had either moved out of to another city or town within Massachusetts, or moved out of state, or moved out of country. So those students were unenrolled, but they were students who had never set foot through our door to begin with for the start of the school year. And I do know that there's many students that were reported in the original report that was the case.
Yes, and we continue to have students. I know that Assistant Superintendent O'Brien was spending time today going through the pre-enrollment list of students that are still missing documentation or have just recently started the enrollment process. There's 40 students in that process, so some of them will show up and some of them won't.
Thank you very much for that.
Any other questions? Thank you. Seeing none. Acceptance of the minutes of October 25th.
Move to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Public
Roll call,
participation.
Oh,
Roll call.
we got to do a roll call.
Has to be a roll call.
Mrs. Matthews.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowden-Henninger.
Yes.
Mr. Gary.
Yes.
Mr. Caruso.
Yes.
The chair will vote yes. So that would be unanimous, with one absent.
With one absent.
Public participation. Any public participation? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Kevin Macchioli, 58 Ridge Road in Marlborough.
Kevin, this is going to be something on the agenda. I'm not going to rehash the same old stuff. So if it's something on the agenda and an action item, we'll take it up. Otherwise, we're not going to rehash the same thing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other public participation? Public participation? Public participation. Seeing none. Action items. FY '24. FY 2024. Budget calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is time. Annually, we come in front of the committee to propose a budget calendar for our budget preparation. This year, we're proposing to submit the budget book to school committee on February 14th. We would host our Wednesday 6 p.m. workshop on March 1st. On March 14th, the school committee would agree on a budget number for the public hearing posting. And on March 28th, we would host the public hearing for the proposed budget, and then during that same session, vote to approve the budget by the school committee, at which point, the following Monday, April 3rd, the budget would go to the mayor and city council.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the schedule.
Motion made and seconded to approve the schedule. Ms. Matthews.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Mr. Gary.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Bowden-Henninger.
Yes.
Mr. Caruso.
Yes.
And the schedule looks good. It is approved. Acceptance of donations. We have FC 216 Teacher Diversification Pilot Grant, MPS $7,644.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Any reports of subcommittees? Oh. Ms. Matthews?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Mr.
it's the roll
Gary.
call vote, Heidi.
Oh, yes, on the roll call vote.
Mr. Gary?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowden-Henninger?
Yes.
Mr. Caruso?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Any reports of school committee subcommittees?
We do.
Mr.
Yeah,
Gary?
Catherine wanted us to let you know that we have a policy meeting coming up with a number of policies, some of which I guess came up last week with from the workshops at the conference. I think the 23rd, I think is where we're going, 23rd. That's it.
Thank you. Any other reports of the subcommittees? Seeing none, members forum.
Can I
Madam,
actually have a question that I forgot to ask? regarding the grant that we just approved. The date on the report, the summary report, it says that the award was to be expended by the end of September 2022. Is that a misprint? Is it supposed to be 2023? Or did
I
we get
think it was the
arrears?
course that happened over the summer, and I think it was, this is the 2-year grant, this is the rollover from the grant last year, yes? I believe, we can follow up with it, but I believe it is the grant that Assistant Superintendent O'Brien and I also participated in last year as a PLC, trying to identify steps that we could take. And one of them was the summer course that was offered to students in order for them to then do the internship in the early childhood this school year. So launching the early childhood program.
Okay.
And if that's not the case, can you just throw it on the next agenda?
I will,
Thank you.
yes. But we do, we currently have interns that have been doing it.
Great, thank you, sorry.
Any other questions on that? Seeing none, members forum. Member. Yes, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, how are you?
Fantastic. Do you have any questions tonight? Nice and easy tonight? Great. With that,
Move to adjourn.
motion made and seconded to adjourn. Ms. Matthews? Ms. Gary?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Bowden-Henninger?
Yes.
Mr. Caruso?
I get the last word? Yes.
No, I do. Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.